to SCP's podcast. I'm here today with Ron from, obviously, SCP. He's a campaign manager, and he's been with us for 15 years, so he has a ton of experience on, obviously, Google Ads, some Meta, some Instagram, but I'm going to let him speak for himself. Ron, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, appreciate having me on here today, Chris. I'm looking forward to participating in the podcasts, and let's get at her.
Let's get at her, just like the Leafs, right? So today we want to do something short and sweet because we encountered a client where you were working on it, and generally the standard are not to use these, but you were using them, and it was very interesting the results you got because you did get some good results for the client. And what I'm referring to is the Search Partner Network.
You know, I've enabled search partners. If an account has already been launched, it's been disabled on the get-go, but I've got limited search volume, or I have a very niche product, a very niche industry, and I'm looking for some traffic here. I will enable my conversion tracking. First and foremost, we have to have proper conversion tracking in place, to measure, if we are getting leads on these search partners. I do regularly review my network metrics to see what sort of percentages I'm being shown on the search network versus the search partners, network.
So let's back up just 1 second. Let's explain to the audience what Search Partner is.
So Search Partners Network, it's basically an extension of placements where your ads can show. The most common are, Amazon, any Google-related other products and placements, ask.com.
So there's anything outside of Google that they have a registered thing, they're on the Google network. Correct.
And in the past, these were all like we would consider low-quality, sites. But again, if I'm going to pay for a lead at half the price on the Search Partners Network versus paying a double the amount on Search Network, I'm willing to continue to run on those Search Partners. Again, providing I've got the conversion tracking in place, and most importantly, if we've got offline tracking in place as well, we can then also measure the quality of those leads.
So what we're saying then is, yes, it might be lower cost, but it's also lower cost. It's usually like a third of the cost. You might get a third of the cost, but it's additional volume where where we're struggling in an industry or with a client.
Absolutely.
They just can't get the volume.
Yep.
Or potentially even if the click is so high that it's just they don't have the budget for it. You're going to try this.
There's that. If we've maxed out all of our search efforts, what's another opportunity for some reach? Then let's enable our search partners as well. If we have a very tight, say, a target CPA, a cost per acquisition, I probably wouldn't enable search partners because of, again, it's the measuring of the quality of the lead and sticking to that very tight, target CPA. But I'm neither here, pro search partners nor am I anti.
Generally depends on the circumstance, and again, you're running it for a few weeks, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't cost a lot, but it's a good test to see what's happening.
Absolutely. And again, if I wouldn't be launching any experiments, to one campaign versus another of, search partners enabled versus disabled. But yeah, I mean, out of the get-go, again, if I'm limited by search volume or if it's a very niche product, I will enable, search partners and measure and constantly review how it's performing. And
all right, well, let's move on to presence and interest. So let's first define the presence and interest in the Google ad campaign.
So think of presence is, you only want to show your ads to the specified geographic locations you've specified and targeted. So I am in that present there of
downtown Toronto lawyer.
Exactly. Interest-based would be, I'm not physically in my specified targeted area, but I've shown an interest. So an example being, I get a call. I work downtown. I get a call that my basement is flooding. Well, I'm not going to be Googling for a plumber in downtown Toronto. I'll be, I live in Durham region. Chances are I'm going to be looking for a plumber, in Oshawa. But if I've got my account set to presence only, I'm telling that user, even though you're in downtown Toronto and you live out in Durham region, we're not going to be showing our ads, to that individual. So in that sense, yeah, if being out here in Durham region, I would certainly have a recommendation of enabling the presence of an interest.
That's
just
given
so
because you have a lot of commuters going downtown Toronto,
Absolutely.
outside of the area. So like, especially if you're even hyper local where you're only a few blocks.
Absolutely. Now, if I'm let's say a delivery service, but I only deliver in Durham region, then chances are, yeah, I'm just going to have, presence only as something much more local. But if, again, the example being if I'm working downtown and I need something out in Durham region, my ad could show to that user. Now, to avoid unwasted spend, I recommend having both negative keywords, in place for other areas that you might not service, or geographic cities and states and provinces.
Because you want that interest to say downtown Toronto.
Exactly.
So you'd want to move out, like you want to do Uxbridge or stuff like that, or Whitby or Pickering. You're really focusing on that
Exactly.
downtown area.
Or if I don't service that area, that would be considered a negative. And not just, negative keywords, but also adding excluded negative locations as well. To avoid that physical presence.
Yep.
Versus that interest-based, presence as well. So,
So at what point would you do this? Would you do this at the start, or would you do this when you've got to the point where you feel you've maxed out the number of conversions, number of leads you can get within your segment, and you're looking for more? When would you do this piece?
So out of the get-go, I am, I'm quite rigid with my negative keywords and negative placements. I initially, having the engagement and conversations with clients and understanding, who they service and where they service. That will dictate, what kind of setting I have in place for presence versus, presence and interest. And depending on how that conversation goes, 9 times out of 10, it's a presence with an interest, setting. Now, there are scenarios again where we're only looking to service a specific area, and that would only be set to a presence only setting. But out of the get-go, I'm usually setting it to a presence and an interest with my geographic keywords, negative keywords all in place, along with the excluded locations because I don't want any cracks or any holes.
And I guess it all depends on what the client really wants and where they.
And that's where the conversation, up front, always starts with. So
Okay.
It's
Now, are there any outsized risks we need to consider with either the search partner or the presence and interest?
I mean, if you have your account set to presence only, it could limit your search volume. Again, depending on the product, budget, there's certainly a limit of how often or where, I guess, your ads are going to show. And again, with the interest-based as well, if you're on a tight budget, there's also the chance of, clicks getting eaten up, say in downtown Toronto. So there's a bit of a balancing act going on, but that's why you hire SCP to manage all of that and to monitor all that activity.
Perfect. I think with that, we're pretty much done in our summary. I think it's a good summary that we had to talk about those two very interesting pieces that don't really normally get used, and it's not always recommended, but sometimes there's a need for it.
There's not a one-shoe-fits-all scenario or setting for every client has got their own unique settings, I find, and not everything is painted with the same brush.
Even within the same industry, I find, because depending
Absolutely.
on what location they're at, kind of where they're situated, other competitors surrounding with them, it's very unique. Even though
1,000%.
Even though people think Google Ads is kind of like put stuff in it. It just doesn't work like that. You have to kind of massage it to
You
the
absolutely
individual
have
area.
to, you know. And again, the history of the account, all that plays into effect. How many negatives you have plays into effect. So, yeah, all of that can play a role in the success of, enabling search partners, enabling, presence or presence interest only. So, there's so many variables in play for every Google Ads account.
Okay. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Ryan.
Appreciate this.
Take care.